It is not an illusion created by the imagination. Rather, it is a dream, and it would be better to think of it as a recap of the previous day. The protagonist had been fighting his opponent and easily dodged its attacks because the opponent was too slow, making our boy curious whether it was a snake or a maggot. However, negligence had always been a problem for our boy. The opponent, who looked like a snake, managed to crawl up and strike him in the face, sending him flying. This caused our boy's armor, which was worth as much as a spaceship, to break. Our boy, now furious, jumped at the snake and started punching its face repeatedly to defeat it. In the heat of anger, fighting always comes first. However, what our boy enjoys the most is swordplay and swordsmanship, especially with magic. He continued striking at the snake using his sword, eventually taking it down. But as he landed, he realized he had placed his foot in the wrong spot, causing him to fall into a pit and pass out. When he finally opened his eyes, he found himself in a room. Our boy's eyes fall on the silhouette of a beautiful lady who is trying to wake him up. He notices that she has gorgeous silver hair, which, according to him, is quite normal. There are always one or two beautiful women who follow the strongest warrior in the universe. Feeling sleepy and weak, our boy assumes these are the after effects of his intense battle with the snake. As the silver-haired woman moves closer, he notices that she gives off a flowery scent, which he finds quite pleasant. When he fully opens his eyes, he sees the woman's face and finds her to be very pretty. At that moment, our boy realizes he is now a little baby who can't stop crying. This leads the silver-haired woman to conclude that her baby, named Arel, is hungry. Little does she know that her baby is crying because he has once again been reincarnated. This is because of a secret our boy holds. It is not uncommon for the protagonist, Arel, to be reincarnated into his past lives, which makes him a bit different from other reincarnated people. Unlike others, our boy can count the exact number of times he has been reincarnated, and this time marks his 101st life as a baby. If Arel's memory serves him correctly, he vividly remembers that his first life was as a Korean, born in Heljozian, where he lived as an ordinary young man, constantly worried about employment, an existence he describes as never truly happy. Our boy was very surprised the first time he reincarnated after dying in a car accident in that life. When he woke up, he had suddenly become a baby, opening his eyes in a church surrounded by foreigners speaking a language he did not understand. From then on, our boy continued to reincarnate again and again, taking on different identities, including a space warrior, a Murim leader, a fully fledged knight, and even a secret agent. What surprised him even more was the fact that every time our boy died, he did not reincarnate in the same world. Thanks to this, he could proudly claim that he had experienced all kinds of lives across various genres, which allowed him to become fully accustomed to being reincarnated. This time, Arel is unfazed by the experience and begins observing his surroundings. After examining the style of the furniture and the interior of the room, he concludes that he is in a medieval era. Moreover, as an expert in reincarnations by now, Arel determines that this place does not resemble the Middle Ages of Earth, leading him to conclude that it must be a fantasy world. Our boy personally thinks that the science fiction world was the best, as it was the easiest place to live, clean and advanced in many ways. However, he still believes this world is far better since it is an environment where one can at least afford to hire a lady-in-waiting. After processing all this new information, our boy concludes that he is in a modest upper-class family within this fantasy world. The most fortunate thing for our boy in this life is that his mother loves him dearly. Arel can feel her love through her kisses and the way her hands wrap tightly around him as she gazes at him with warm, caring eyes. Having met many mothers in his previous lives, our boy has learned that maternal love is not something to be taken for granted. There were times when Arel was abandoned right after birth, and times when he was only seen as a means of gaining money. But this time, Arel has a good feeling about his mother. The maid, China, suggests that Arel's mother, Livanna, leave the prince to her care since Livanna must be tired. However, Livanna expresses concern about whether others will recognize her child as a prince. China reassures her that things might not turn out as she expects. Arel is surprised to hear that he is a prince, but quickly notices that something is wrong. His mother's face looks very sad as she discusses his fate with the maid. Livanna then asks China to speak to her more casually, without the use of honorifics. Livanna asks China to address her as she used to, since they are the only ones in the room, but China hesitates, saying she cannot bring herself to do so. Livanna doesn't mind, understanding that she was also a maid not long ago, doing the same work as China. Meanwhile, our boy finally figures out why his mother seems so gloomy. Livanna explains that Arel is considered a prince because he carries the blood of the emperor. However, in reality, Arel is far from a glorious life, as he also has Livanna's humble blood in his veins. She fears that one day Arel will blame her for the fact that he has neither the right to inherit anything nor any power in the castle. China tries to reassure Livanna, saying that such a thing would never happen. Livanna, however, is fully aware of what the other concubines and nobles say about her, and she knows that because of her, Arel will never have anything in this place. She apologizes to Arel, who is still a newborn, as tears begin to flow from her eyes. Seeing this, our boy does his best to wipe away his mother's tears with his tiny baby hands. Livanna feels happy, believing that Arel understands everything and is doing his best to comfort his sad mother. This is the least our boy can do, as he cannot yet speak. Arel wishes he could tell his mother that he is fine with his position and that he does not care about not having the right to be a successor or lacking followers. Moreover, he knows that the powerful nobles will not pay attention to him, and even the royal family will not be concerned about him because he intends to live the life of a prince who remains indifferent to his surroundings. To Arel, this makes his 101st life the perfect opportunity to live peacefully and easily. The blood of the emperor and a royal concubine who was once a maid runs through Arel's veins, making it a unique combination. A life where our boy can stay far away from power struggles, enjoying himself to the fullest. As long as royal blood flows through Arel's veins, even a minimum standard of living will be guaranteed. As our boy dreams of his royal life, his mother, Livanna, remarks that the future of this child, who knows nothing of the harsh circumstances he was born into, seems so bright. Yet Livanna feels saddened by the fact that she lacks the power to protect the bright smile of her only son. Arel understands why his mother is worried. In a world full of aristocrats, where lineage and class are paramount, the life of a prince without succession rights is nothing but a potential scapegoat. Having no claim to succession means there is no future and no followers, and without power, he lacks the means to protect himself. This means that the only thing awaiting him, after being completely exploited, is death. However, even though Arel cannot speak, he tries to reassure his mother that he will be all right, as he was a seasoned pro in his previous lives, having navigated countless dangerous situations. 3 months pass quickly, and Arel is seen sleeping in his crib when his mother comes to check on him. She finds his sleeping face adorable, resembling that of an angel. Yet, she feels sadness because she had hoped Arel would have hair like the emperor's, which might make him more favorably regarded by the emperor. As Livanna worries about Arel, her maid China enters the room and informs her that the carriage is ready. Livanna responds that she will be there shortly, giving baby Arel a goodbye kiss and telling him to behave well since she will return soon. Once the door closes behind Livanna, Arel decides to stop pretending to be asleep and wakes up, confident that his act must have convinced both his mother and China. However, our boy realizes that he should not waste any time or make any noise, as China will soon enter his room. She is usually on a 5-second standby to keep a close eye on Arel, who is still a baby. Arel decides to act quickly, knowing he won't have much time alone like this. This task is crucial for his future, and he also feels that he should enjoy his life to the fullest, especially since he was born into the royal family as a prince, even if only in name. Our boy understands that to move around freely, the most important thing he needs is power. In every world he has lived in, strength is the ultimate truth. As long as he is strong, no one will dare oppose him. Moreover, Arel did not spend his past 100 lives in vain. During his 30th reincarnation, he created a unique training method called Origin Creation Qigong. This method allows him to build strength even with a baby's body. It is a divine technique that enables Arel to cultivate both his innate qi and origin qi simultaneously. Most importantly, our boy can practice this technique even with the body of a baby, An ordinary person would never suspect that Arel is training. After mastering this method, Arel would have the equivalent of 60 years worth of inner chi by the time he reaches the age of 10, and 180 years worth by the time he is 20. Moreover, after the initial stages, Arel would no longer have to focus as intensely because, once he accumulates enough chi, he can continue to practice even while in the nanny's arms. Our boy notices that the amount of chi he has managed to store is minimal, so he decides to speed things up, aware that his nanny could enter at any moment. He begins slowly moving the accumulated chi to his brain's frontal lobe, using the electrical stimulation of his body's energy and nerves. This allows him to feel the chi expanding throughout his body. Arel's head becomes overwhelmed with heat as the energy reaches a point where he can no longer control it, causing him to let out a loud scream. This startles the nanny, who rushes back into the room in just 5 seconds. Fortunately, our boy finishes his task within that short span of time, just as China arrives to check on him. China enters the room, possibly to change Arel's diaper, but Arel silently wishes she wouldn't touch him. Even a small touch could dissipate all the energy he has accumulated so far. Fortunately, China decides not to change the diaper and leaves the room, thinking that Arel's worried expression might mean he had a nightmare. As she exits, Arel feels his body start to burn like a human thermal power plant. The reason China didn't notice anything unusual is because Arel was able to suppress the amplification for a moment, but now he is overheating. Our boy knows that a fever can be very dangerous for babies, so he tries his best to control it, though he has no idea how long his body can withstand it. Determined not to live his life at someone else's mercy, he decides to push himself to the level of chi manipulation by using the origin qigong technique. Everything Arel is doing now is aimed at living a comfortable life. As our boy accelerates to the level of chi manipulation, he lets out a loud scream, even louder than before. The sound is so intense that it echoes through the room and reaches China, who is walking away from Arel's room. China hears Arel scream and rushes back to his room to check on him, but she is surprised to find him sleeping peacefully. However, there is one thing she finds strange. Arel is sweating profusely. She decides that he will be fine after a nice, refreshing herbal bath, so she heads to the kitchen to prepare it. Meanwhile, our boy is relieved, not only because China didn't notice anything unusual, but also because he has achieved the prefrontal lobe hyperevolution. After China gives Arel the herbal bath and changes his clothes, she is pleased to see that he seems to be in good condition. She notices that Arel is moving his arms normally, which puts her at ease. Our boy believes that China has no affinity for mana, as she cannot detect that he is using the chi from his awakened frontal lobe to sense and absorb mana from the atmosphere. In other words, Arel is getting stronger just by eating, sleeping, and idling around, which makes him quite happy. If he keeps progressing at this rate, he knows his future will be promising. He believes that by the time he turns 3, he will have accumulated a considerable amount of inner chi, and by the time he reaches 10, the number of individuals capable of killing him might be counted on one hand. China notices that Arel is continuously looking up, which makes her curious if there is something above that catches his interest, but she cannot understand what fascinates him. She does know one thing, though. She likes it when Arel smiles. What China doesn't realize is that our boy is happy because he is gradually getting stronger while in his nanny's arms and is looking forward to the day he can live idly as a prince. He hopes for that day to come quickly. 5 months have passed since Arel was born, and thanks to the effects of the origin creation qigong technique, both his physical abilities and inner chi are developing faster than those of his peers. Arel is automatically accumulating chi every day. Although he is crawling on the floor at the moment, once he has built up enough chi, something like levitating would be a walk in the park for him. As our boy is playing by himself, he is surprised when he starts to feel himself levitating, but he soon realizes that it is his mother who has lifted him up. She is happy to see Arel having fun and wants to give him a rattle as a gift. At first, Arel is not enthusiastic about the rattle, but when he notices his mother's disappointment, he quickly begins playing with it, giving the proper reaction. This puts Livana at ease. She is glad to see her son enjoying her gift and decides to play with Arel a bit longer, while her maid, China, finds Arel's reactions to be the cutest. Livana wonders who Arel takes after with his adorable behavior, while our boy thinks he clearly takes after his mother. He decides to cherish these moments, knowing that being adored is a luxury that can only be truly enjoyed in childhood. As Arel continues playing with his mother, he suddenly feels hungry, but being so small, he has no other way to express it except by crying. So, Arel begins to cry to let his mother and China know that he is hungry. China quickly catches on and informs Livana that Arel might need to be fed. As Livana feeds our boy, she asks China about the whereabouts of her maid, Anna. China replies that Anna quit just yesterday because the palace's budget was smaller this year, which saddens Livana, as Anna was a bright and smart girl. Our boy realizes that the palace's financial situation isn't good, something he had overheard from the maids while playing in his crib. They were discussing how they needed to reduce the amount of food on Lady Livana's table while still considering nutrition. However, they couldn't do much because of the low budget. Arel had initially thought it was just the maids complaining, but now he understands that the situation is more serious than he assumed. He hadn't realized things were this bad, especially since his mother is still a royal concubine, and he expected there wouldn't be any problems in her palace. But Arel thinks the main problem is that his mother was born a maid, even though she gave birth to a prince. Livana, however, is simply glad they are not starving, while China considers them fortunate that they don't have to reduce the number of soldiers. China then points out that their biggest challenge will be the winter, especially now that they have the prince, since they can't grow anything during that season. Our boy, still satisfying his hunger, hadn't realized things were so dire that they wouldn't be able to survive on their own. He assumed he wouldn't freeze to death simply because he was a prince. China suggests they should seek help from the emperor, but Livana replies that she hasn't been able to see him at all because he is a busy person. Our boy realizes that the reason his mother often went out in the carriage was to see the emperor, but Arel finds it strange that Livana wasn't able to see him even once. After all, no matter how merciless an emperor may be, that kind of behavior is unacceptable, which makes our boy wonder if there are forces, like the emperor's close aides or other concubines, keeping his mom in check and isolating her. Hearing all this makes Arel feel sorry for his poor mom, and he starts crying, as if trying to tell the maid that he wants to go to Livana. China quickly understands and hands Arel over to Livana. Arel decides that, no matter what happens, he will find a way to help his mom, even though, at the moment, he is only good at acting cute and rolling over. As night falls, our boy, sitting in his crib, starts thinking about how he can help his mom get through the winter without worry. He knows they need to address the food problem first, which requires a lot of money. Moreover, they will also need more firewood to keep themselves warm in the snowy weather. Suddenly, Arel comes up with a brilliant idea to solve his mother's problems. As our boy contemplates how he can help his mother get through the winter, Arel's eyes fall on the charcoal lying in the fireplace, sparking an idea. Charcoal is rich in carbon, which means Arel could potentially create a diamond, a valuable jewel made from carbon. Even making just one diamond could solve his problem, given the value of jewelry in this place. Our boy tries to stand up to get out of the crib, but, due to his weak body, he falls back down. Determined, he thinks of another way and remembers that he possesses enough mana to levitate out of the crib. With ease, our boy lifts himself into the air, finding it surprisingly simple, and moves toward the fireplace to transform the charcoal into a diamond. Right now, the charcoal is an important resource for him, even though it's currently only used to heat his room. He considers himself a genius for thinking of making a diamond from charcoal, but decides not to spend the night praising himself. Arel decides to use this time to quickly create a diamond while everyone is asleep, which motivates him for the task. He focuses intently as he combines thermal energy with mana to apply as much pressure as possible to the charcoal. Arel is determined not to hold back and concentrates fiercely on the task, knowing that while he can accumulate mana again, he cannot afford to waste the energy he has gathered so far. He compresses the energy with all his might, akin to zipping a large file with WinRAR, to increase the internal pressure of the charcoal. He endures the pressure, determined not to be pushed out, as he knows that successfully creating the diamond will make his mother happy. As Arel continues to compress, a powerful blast occurs, sending the smoke generated in the process up through the chimney. With that, Arel successfully creates a diamond, which he finds truly beautiful. After completing this challenging task, Arel lies down and begins to think about how to present the diamond he made to his mother. As the sun rises, China enters Arel's room and is surprised to find him crawling out of the crib, as she believes it is not yet possible for him to do so. Concerned that Arel might have slept on the cold floor all night, China picks him up and notices that not only is Arel's adorable face smudged, but the fireplace and carpet are also in disarray. She concludes that Arel must have been playing alone throughout the night. China is further astonished by the mess on the floor, which seems unusual given the age of the palace. She decides to prevent Arel from touching the floor for now. Arel, trying to reassure China, acts as cute as possible, placing his hands over his mouth to make her think he has something in his mouth. China, with her keen senses, notices this and asks Arel to show her what he has in his mouth. China is astonished when a beautifully shiny diamond emerges from Arel's mouth. She gently squishes his cheeks to ensure the object is fully revealed. Curious about where Arel obtained this diamond, she notes that nothing is missing from the treasury she manages and that no such diamond is listed in the palace's records. Despite this, China decides not to dwell on the matter and thanks Arel, who seems eager to present the diamond to her. Meanwhile, Arel wonders whether his mother will appreciate the gift he prepared. Soon after, a parade of wagons arrives at the palace, delivering items that fill the empty kitchen warehouse with groceries and firewood. The storage space becomes so crowded that there is no room for additional supplies, alleviating the palace's concerns. This abundance is made possible by the diamond Arel crafted, which was traded at an exceptionally high price, securing provisions for the next 5 years. Despite this relief, Livanna remains concerned about whether the gem has an original owner. China reassures Livanna that there is no cause for concern, explaining that the castle had been ownerless for nearly 100 years before Livanna took possession, which alleviates Livanna's worries. China further suggests that the discovery of the diamond might be a sign of divine favor upon the prince. While Livanna is uncertain about this notion, she is relieved that their problems have been resolved. Arel crawls over to his mother and grabs her clothing with his tiny hands, conveying that she must persevere until he grows up. He promises that, once that time comes, he will do everything in his power to attract the emperor's attention and resolve any further issues. The fireplace at Livanna's palace burned continuously throughout the winter as the palace's finances stabilized. This financial stability led to improvements in the living conditions of both the master and the servants, which was evident from the transformation of Livanna's once nearly empty dining table, now filled with a variety of dishes. Livanna noticed that the food served to her each morning was more than she could eat on her own and expressed concern about the food provided to the servants. However, China assured her that there was no need to worry about the servants and encouraged Livanna to focus on enjoying the meals on her table. Additionally, Anna, the maid who had been forced to quit due to the palace's poor conditions, was reinstated. This brought joy to Livanna as Anna rejoined her fellow maids, and overall treatment of the servants improved. The most significant change, however, was the transformation in Livanna's demeanor. Her once gloomy face, which Arel finds most beautiful when she smiles, was now radiant. Despite the harshest winter on record, it was the warmest season Arel had ever experienced. The year passes quickly as Livanna and China deliberate over a suitable outfit for Arel. They try on various clothes without reaching a decision, which begins to irritate Arel. This is the first time they have made such a fuss over his outfit, and he grows tired of their indecision. To express his need for rest in a manner befitting a prince, Arel decides to start crying. Hearing his cries, China concludes that Arel wants to sleep, so they promptly dress him and place him in his crib, allowing him to rest peacefully. As China settles Arel into the crib, he overhears her mention that he will be officially recognized as a member of the royal family today. This piques Arel's curiosity about what she means. Meanwhile, Livanna expresses her happiness that Arel has grown up without any issues over the past year, though she remains concerned about whether the emperor will attend Arel's birthday. Although Arel might be a prince only in name, the royal blood still runs through his veins. China reassures Livanna that the emperor has not overlooked Arel. He was simply waiting for the appropriate moment, as misfortunes often befall newborns. Meanwhile, Arel realizes that the earlier fuss was about his birthday. Livanna explains that, while it might not be a grand banquet, the event will officially announce that Arel has inherited royal blood, which pleases her as it means that the rules of the Ernesia royal family will apply to him. Arel, having finally understood why his mother is excited, wonders if the nobles and other members of the royal family will attend, as it is a banquet. This means he might finally meet the emperor, prompting him to start planning something. The banquet begins, and all the guests enjoy the food and the beautiful performances by the violist and the pianist. The banquet is charming, and Arel, who is amazed by the entire setup, thinks that the emperor must have spent a considerable amount of money on such extravagance. Our boy is thoroughly enjoying the grandeur of the banquet and the fancy attire, a novel experience even for someone living his 101st life. Livana and China are pleased to see Arel enjoying himself at the event held in his honor. China realizes that Arel's enjoyment might stem from seeing so many people for the first time. Livana kisses Arel on the cheek and tells him that he is the main character of the evening. Arel notices some ladies gossiping about him and his mother, but chooses to ignore them. What interests him more is the Emperor of Ernesia, Arel Ernesia, Arel's father, who has yet to make an appearance. Arel is eager to see how important the emperor must be to avoid appearing since Arel's birth. Additionally, Arel is troubled by the fact that the emperor seems indifferent to the conditions in which Arel and his mother are living. As our boy contemplates how to make his presence known to the emperor, the royal family of Ernesia, excluding the emperor, arrives at the banquet, marking the official start of the event with their grand entrance. The pressure from the queen, who enters with her children, Arel's half-siblings, is palpable. Among them, the queen's eldest son stands out, followed by the brown-haired girl who seems to still exhibit a somewhat aloof demeanor, accompanied by her 3 younger siblings. Our boy scrutinizes each of them closely, but is taken aback when he notices that none of them acknowledge his mother, which incites his anger. Meanwhile, Livana assumes that Arel's reaction is due to the noise and tells him to be patient, even though he is struggling to do so. The atmosphere of the banquet shifts dramatically with the queen's arrival. Women begin to gossip about the queen's beauty, noting that she has brightened the entire event with her presence. Meanwhile, our boy feels sympathy for Livana, who, despite her difficulties, is still doing her best to ensure that Arel enjoys himself. However, Arel is taken aback when he notices a sudden change in his mother's expression, which had been calm until now. Curious about the cause of her reaction, Arel scans his surroundings and discovers that the commotion is due to the entrance of the Emperor of Ernesia. Arel is not surprised by the Emperor's appearance, but rather by the sheer amount of energy he is radiating. Arel Ernesia, the Emperor, walks through the palace with an immense golden aura emanating from him, intensifying with each step he takes toward the throne. Our boy is stunned by the overwhelming pressure radiating from Arel, bewildered by the incredible energy he currently feels. Arel's charisma is so powerful that it instantly silences even the most talkative nobles, amplifying the weight of the atmosphere he commands. Arel, too, feels intimidated by the Emperor's extraordinary presence. He bites his thumb aggressively, estimating that Arel must be at least a peak-level master in this world. Suddenly, Arel stops and turns toward Arel and his mother, staring at them intently. Arel is left unsure if Arel's gaze is fixed on him or his mother, leading him to regret that even after 100 reincarnations, our boy has not yet learned to read another person's mind or discern their thoughts. Arel resumes his walk toward the throne as the audience obediently waits for him to be seated so the gathering can continue. Once Arel takes his seat, the banquet officially begins, with many lower-class nobles approaching the table where our boy and his mother are sitting. They congratulate them, presenting numerous gifts and claiming it is an honor to meet Prince Arel. However, this is all a farce. Regardless of whether they are low-ranking nobles or high-ranking aristocrats, they all share the same disdain for Arel and his mother. Their contempt is so blatant that they can't even hide it on their faces. Our boy finds this deeply frustrating, which leads him to act out in anger, while Arel's mother sits quietly with a sad expression. Arel continues to vent his anger by hurling all sorts of derogatory terms at the nobles and considers ruining their hearing by screaming at the top of his lungs. But Arel's mother gently embraces him, calming him down with a cheerful offer to feed him some milk. Looking at his mother's kind face, our boy decides to abandon the idea of hurting others, realizing that it would only negatively impact Arel's mother. He calms down, recognizing that such behavior from people was to be expected and shouldn't matter much to Arel. To pass the time in this irritating place, our boy decides to take a quick nap, yawning obnoxiously. However, he is immediately disturbed by a sharp pinch on his cheek. The sting catches Arel off guard, and he quickly turns to see who did it. He spots a little girl who calls him small and realizes she is with the other royal concubines who have also come to offer their greetings. Our boy forgives the little girl, understanding that she is too young to grasp the complexities of power struggles. The concubines then bow in respect, congratulating him on his birthday, but their gesture is shallow, performed only out of courtesy. When Arel's mother attempts to thank and welcome them, the concubines walk away before she can even finish her sentence. The entire banquet continued with such occurrences, leaving our boy and his mother feeling quite sad, despite Arel's efforts to comfort her by holding her tightly. Suddenly, Arel's mother, Livana, is greeted by the queen, Elia, who also wears a cold expression. When Livana politely asks Elia how she has been, Elia seizes the opportunity to brag about how her eldest son has properly earned the position of the first heir. This boasting makes our boy feel disgusted by Elia's pride in her son. As our boy cautiously navigates around Elia, she unexpectedly compliments him, saying that Arel looks exactly like Livana and even gives a genuinely happy smile, calling him cute. However, our boy remains on guard, suspecting it could be another act. After all, if Elia were truly a kind and good-hearted person, the situation in the concubines' living quarters and Livana's finances would not be so dire. The guards would not have to perform daily chores or work alongside the maids, using whatever scraps of cloth they could find to make clothes for Arel. In front of the giant window that casts sunlight on the prominent figures of the banquet, Elia and her first son depart after Elia wishes Arel and Livana a good time as mother and son, though a sinister smile lingers on her face as she turns away. Following this brief and cold interaction, Livana is approached by the emperor, Arel himself, who bluntly asks if her life has been going smoothly, almost as if he were merely checking off a list. Livana, unable to speak freely in the emperor's presence, assures Arel that everything is perfectly fine, while our boy is much more expressive about the difficulties at the concubine palace. Our boy demands his expenses and money from Arel by crying and turning in his mother's arms, while Livana urges him to behave in front of the emperor. Arel, intrigued by Arel's behavior, thinks for a moment before asking Livana to hand Arel over to him so that he can hold our boy, noting that it is a rare sight for a child not to cry upon seeing him. Arel decides to laugh in Arel's face, believing that no father could be cruel in response to the heartfelt smile of his child. Remarkably, this tactic works, as Arel smiles at Arel's unique behavior, leaving Livana shocked by the unexpected development. Feeling a bit too eager, our boy decides to show something else to his father by gesturing to be put down, which Arel somehow manages to understand. As our boy prepares to walk, Livana quickly tells Arel that Arel is not yet able to walk, which Arel finds reasonable, considering it is only Arel's first birthday. However, while they are both busy speculating, our boy begins to take his first steps forward without any support, astonishing everyone in the room, including Arel and Livana. With this incredible achievement for a toddler, Livana's maid cheers for Arel's first steps, while Livana sheds a tear of pure happiness at the sight of her son walking already. Meanwhile, Arel is intrigued, wondering if Arel intended to show him that he could actually walk. But our boy has even more in store to show Arel, hoping to make a memorable impression from the very beginning. With everyone keenly observing what Arel will do next, he walks over to the dining table and grabs the tablecloth. However, instead of executing whatever he had planned to stand out in front of Arel, Arel receives a harsh reality check. He is still just a toddler. He pushes the tablecloth, causing the food on the table to fall onto him, surprising everyone at the banquet, especially his father, his mother, and China. But our boy did not do this by mistake. He had a clever plan that no one noticed, as they were all still marveling at the first steps of a one-year-old prince. Arel pulled the tablecloth at the perfect moment, just as a baby might, causing the items on the table to fall safely onto him. He then finished with his perfect crying technique, which prompted the emperor to walk over to him. The emperor lifts Arel up to calm him down and ensure he is unhurt, while our boy, realizing the advantage of still being a little child, decides to cry a bit longer. Livanna and China panic and rush over to check if Arel is all right, but the emperor reassures them that Arel is not injured, though he might need a change of clothes. China asks the emperor if she can take Arel, but the emperor assures her there is no problem. However, as the emperor holds our boy, he notices that his own son is wearing worn-out and dirty undergarments. This discovery infuriates the emperor, while China and Livanna are shocked, especially since China had ensured that the prince's undergarments were in good condition when she dressed him that morning. The guests expressed disgust at Arel for wearing such dirty clothes, deeming them unfit for a prince and speculating that the young prince might have been living a humble life until now. The emperor, angered by their comments, orders everyone at the banquet to be silent. He then asks little Arel about the kind of life he has been living up until now. Meanwhile, our boy is finally happy, realizing he has successfully made the emperor believe his little act, which he had planned to execute that morning. While the nanny was preparing to change our boy's clothes before going out, he had raised his body heat using his energy. The fabric of Arel's clothes was so fragile that our boy could tear it with his bare hands, and the lint was created after he rubbed it slightly. He did all this to reveal the uncomfortable truth behind the fancy clothes, which seemed to be merely a facade for Arel's birthday. This situation prompts the emperor to question Arel's mother, Livanna, about why Arel's attire does not meet the royal family's standards. Livanna is frightened by the inquiry, but the emperor soon realizes that Livanna may not be the appropriate person to answer his questions. He then asks Jennifer, his butler, about how the budget was allocated to each palace, ensuring that his orders were followed. Jennifer reports that he was instructed to distribute the budget fairly among the palaces and confirms that the budget is as the emperor understands it to be. However, the emperor becomes angry when the butler mentions the fair distribution, questioning whether Arel's poor condition demonstrates that the budget was indeed distributed fairly. After receiving no response from the butler, the emperor orders Jennifer to immediately bring him the details of the budget. Meanwhile, our mischievous boy sees this as an opportunity to learn more about his father, even though his birthday party has abruptly turned into a hearing. Livanna and China step forward, acknowledging their fault, as Livanna takes the baby from the emperor. However, the emperor remains silent, while our boy reassures his mother to endure a little longer, as he is creating this drama for their benefit. The guests and performers remain silent in the emperor's formidable presence as Jennifer finally delivers the budget details and hands them over to the emperor. The emperor reviews the budget thoroughly, reading it word for word. After a careful examination, he becomes enraged and burns the document, which terrifies poor Livanna. Observing the emperor's reaction, Arel deduces that the emperor was unaware of the situation, which piques our boy's curiosity about who tampered with the palace's budget. Arel calls his queen forward and asks if she was aware of the budget issue. Instead of answering the emperor, the queen inquires about the contents of the document. Arel informs her that the budget was not distributed fairly and that funds were being misallocated, which shocks the queen, as she finds this notion impossible. Arel repeats his question, asking if the queen truly did not know about this, despite her responsibility for matters related to the concubines. Before Arel can say anything further to the queen, her eldest son steps forward and addresses his father. The queen's eldest son stands before his father and asserts that the embezzlement of funds was likely carried out by someone malicious, as his mother, the queen, is never unkind to the concubines. Arel then questions whether this means the queen is not responsible for the mismanagement simply because she did not commit the wrongdoing herself, pointing to Arel, who is poorly clothed and has suffered from this lack of oversight. As Arel discusses the matter with his eldest son, our boy feels relieved, noting that the queen's malicious aura seems to have dissipated in the presence of the emperor's charisma. Arel asks if his son is suggesting that the queen bears no responsibility since she did not directly commit the offense, leaving his eldest son speechless and unable to respond. Arel expresses his profound disappointment in the queen, shocking everyone present at the banquet as they witness the emperor reprimanding her. At this moment, Livanna intervenes, stating that Lady Elia, the queen, is not at fault. Rather, she argues that the fault lies with her, implying that she does not deserve the royal life she leads. Arel responds by questioning how Livanna can make such a claim when she has given birth to his child, which alone qualifies her as a member of the royal family. Livanna wants to speak, but Arel smiles at her and tells her she should be proud of herself for being a member of the royal family, while Elia, on the other hand, finds Livanna repugnant. The emperor then turns to his queen and orders her to track down and hold accountable those responsible for the mismanagement, emphasizing that he hopes such an incident does not occur again. Elia assures Arel that she will make sure not to trouble him further, but Arel warns her that if a similar situation arises in the future, he will hold her accountable. Angered by the perceived failings of the concubines, Elia promises Arel that she will identify and severely punish the responsible party. She then turns to Livanna to apologize for the mistake she made. Elia expresses that it would have been preferable if Livanna had consulted her first. Our boy finds Elias acting ridiculous, thinking that no one would fall for such poor performance. He is surprised when Livanna, rather than addressing Elia directly, tells her that there is no need for an apology from someone like Elia. Our boy believes that his mother should have at least confronted Elia, as she obviously deserves it. It seems implausible that Elia was unaware of the situation from the beginning. Elia assures Livanna that she will prevent such issues from recurring and that Livanna need not worry about it. However, Arel perceives no sincerity in Elia's eyes, nor in the eyes of any of the emperor's concubines. Despite the drama, Arel's birthday party concludes, and the budget problem is swiftly resolved. The mastermind behind the mismanagement of the palace's funds, a member of the aristocratic family, is apprehended and meets a miserable end. The maids in Livanna's palace discuss how the ringleader confessed after the investigation. Despite their relief that the matter has been settled, our boy feels that the situation was too conveniently resolved, as things went silent following the execution. Arel is certain that the queen is a formidable opponent and vows to confront her more decisively once he grows up. For now, however, he is focused on addressing his hunger. Arel starts crying to signal China that he is hungry. China returns with soup, encouraging him to eat well since she specifically prepared it for him. This makes our boy happy, as he decides to focus solely on his growth for the time being. He resolves to play and eat like a baby, finding it thrilling to simply enjoy himself and eat. After his meal, Arel decides to take a nap to recharge for more playtime. However, after some time, he wakes up to the sound of horse carriages, which piques his curiosity, as he realizes these carriages are different from the ones his mother uses for travel. Looking out the window to identify the people the soldiers are escorting, our boy detects 3 individuals approaching his room. He recognizes one person as likely being his mother, suspects another is an adult, and concludes that the last one is a child due to their light step. Realizing he needs to wake up his nanny without drawing attention, our boy quickly moves to alert her, ensuring that he does not get caught. Arel quickly manages to reach his nanny, who is sleeping soundly on the sofa, and begins pinching her cheeks. This causes her discomfort, prompting China to request that the prince stop because it hurts. At that moment, Livanna enters the room with her guests and sees Arel pinching China's cheeks forcefully. She admonishes Arel, telling him not to treat China that way, while China rises to greet her lady. Excited to see Livanna, Arel extends his arms, signaling that he wants to be picked up. Instead, Livanna tells Arel to behave like a good boy and listen to his nanny. China, surprised to see Lady Phinelia, apologizes for not having made proper preparations for her visit. Lady Phinelia, however, assures China that she does not mind, as she had not informed anyone of her visit to the palace. Livanna, on the other hand, remarks that had Phinelia informed them of her visit, they could have made appropriate preparations. Phinelia explains that she did not want others to know she was coming to Livanna's palace. While our boy, who is in China's arms, finally recognizes Lady Phinelia as one of the royal concubines he saw at the banquet, Phinelia instructs her daughter to stay in the room, as she wishes to have a private conversation with Lady Livanna. The scene shifts to Livanna and Phinelia seated across from each other. Livanna is puzzled by Phinelia's sudden visit, especially since she had not been informed in advance. As Livanna contemplates starting the conversation, Finelia surprises her by apologizing, causing Livanna to cough unexpectedly. Concerned, Finelia asks if Livanna is all right. Livanna assures her that she is fine and inquires about the reason for Finelia's sudden apology. Finelia explains that she has been feeling regretful and wanted to apologize for having ignored Livanna during the prince's birthday celebration. This revelation shocks Livanna further, leaving her uncertain of how to respond to Finelia, who hails from Kinchester, a prestigious family known for its significant contributions during the height of the continent's war. The Kinchester family was renowned throughout the country, but its former glory has long since faded. The family's decline began when no new generation exhibited the military talent that once distinguished them. This decline led to rumors that the family's finances were in jeopardy, placing the Kinchester family in a difficult position. Livanna inquires if Finelia's actions were motivated by the family's financial troubles. Finelia confirms that she acted to settle the family's debt, explaining that she could not refuse their proposal. She places a pouch full of money on the table. When Livanna asks why Finelia is doing this, Finelia responds that she is returning the money, even though it will not resolve the underlying issues. She still felt it necessary to bring Livanna this pouch of gold coins. Livanna is at a loss for words, but Finelia clarifies that she is not seeking forgiveness. Instead, she requests that Livanna direct her resentment solely toward Finelia, while gesturing toward her daughter, who is playing in the other room. Livanna eventually understands that Finelia is trying to protect her only child from the political machinations of the emperor and the royal family. She reassures Finelia that it is acceptable, and, in a gesture of goodwill, Livanna declines to accept the pouch from Finelia. Livanna explains that she never harbored any ill feelings toward Finelia, which surprises Finelia. Finelia initially believes that Livanna's refusal to accept the money stems from pity over her family's troubles. She insists that Livanna need not feel sympathy for her. In response, Livanna clarifies that she does not feel pity but rather wishes to avoid animosity between them. She offers to return the pouch of coins as a gesture of friendship, suggesting that Finelia may also consider it a gift. Livanna then explains that the issues with their palace's budget are due to Lady Elia, whom Livanna knows well. This revelation shocks Finelia, as she realizes that Livanna's suspicion of Elia's involvement stems from her own past as Elia's attendant, which further surprises Arel. Arel, who had been eavesdropping on their conversation from his room, now finally understands the source of his mother's resentment toward the queen. China, still in Arel's room, notices his unusual behavior and asks if he feels unwell. Arel responds with a wide smile to reassure her that he is fine, although China remains puzzled by Arel's mood swings. China then approaches Princess Kania, who is engrossed in a book, and inquires about her progress. Meanwhile, Arel sighs with relief as he refocuses on his previous task. By controlling his chi, Arel can overhear conversations from beyond the room. He concentrates once again to listen to his mother's discussion with Finelia. Finelia expresses to Livanna that she feels powerless in the face of Lady Elia's disdain and has resigned herself to it. However, Livanna, setting down her cup of tea, declares that she will no longer tolerate Elia's contempt. With her son Arel by her side, Livanna resolves to stand firm against Elia's behavior, regardless of her status as queen. Livanna has no intention of letting the queen act with impunity. She seeks to form a close bond with Lady Finelia, which makes Finelia realize that Livanna's motives are not merely driven by goodwill, but by a desire to see a resolution. Finelia acknowledges Livanna's position and contemplates that a day may come when they will both find themselves cornered and in need of mutual support. Meanwhile, Arel, now fully aware that his mother has been privy to the ongoing feud between the queen and the royal family against them, begins to prepare himself for the challenges that lie ahead. He understands that anyone could pose a threat to them from now on. As Arel contemplates these issues, he suddenly notices a hand reaching into his crib. Looking up, he sees Lady Finelia's daughter trying to climb into the crib for a closer look at him. Arel wonders how she managed to get there, and fears that the little girl might jump into the crib. But Arel's worst fears come true when Finelia's daughter climbs into the crib and begins to play roughly with Arel's cheeks, finding them warm and inviting. Arel is bewildered by why Finelia's daughter treats him like a toy, even though he is clearly not one. China, observing the interaction, exclaims that Arel is simply adorable, to which Kania agrees. Meanwhile, Arel, who feels at the mercy of Kania's playful antics, pleads with his nanny to rescue him from this discomfort. However, Arel feels betrayed when China goes a step further and encourages Kania to visit him often, which surprises Kania. Arel is left wondering how China could say such a thing, as her primary role is to protect him. Time passes, and Arel turns 30 months old. He stands by the window of his room, reflecting that life is but a fleeting moment. In just 6 months, he will be 3 years old. Despite this, Arel remains frustrated with his baby tongue, which still fails to articulate properly. He knows it will take some time before he becomes accustomed to speaking. As Arel reminisces about his past reincarnations, when he could charm women within 10 minutes due to his eloquent speech, he suddenly hears footsteps approaching his room and quickly identifies who is coming by the sound. The door opens abruptly, and Kania barges in, inviting Arel to play with her. Discovering that Arel is not immediately visible, Kania does not leave, but begins searching for him in the room. She quickly succeeds in finding Arel hiding behind the curtains. Delighted that Arel seems to want to play hide and seek with her, Kania decides to take him to a larger area where they can play more effectively. Arel, unable to explain to Kania why he was hiding, reflects on how Kania's frequent visits began after Finelia's visit to Livana. Arel suspects that Kania's visits might be due to something China said, but he recognizes that Kania's regular presence indicates that Livana and Finelia have grown quite close. As Arel contemplates this, Kania explains that the reason she frequently visits their house is to play with Arel and take care of him, given that he is still young. She adds that in return, Arel should do the same for Kania when he gets older, visiting her home whenever she calls. Arel agrees, thanking Kania for playing with him, while he wonders why it seems that he is the only one engaging in play with Kania. Kania confides in Arel that she likes him the most because Leonil is unpleasant, and playing with Meryl is not enjoyable, but she feels a strong bond with Arel. However, Arel is unsure of the validity of this sentiment, as he questions whether he will still be playing with Kania in a few years when he is older. While Arel is lost in thought, Kania suddenly picks him up and hugs him tightly, making it difficult for Arel to breathe. He begins to plead for relief. Observing this, Kania's caretaker advises her not to hug Arel so tightly, as it could hurt him, and requests that Kania allow her to take care of Arel instead, suggesting that it is best not to overdo it since he is still very young. This provides Arel with relief as he clings to Kania's maid, thinking that her timing is impeccable. Kania, however, complains that she wants to play more. Her maid suggests that Kania could go inside to paint or play an instrument, but Kania finds these activities dull. The maid then asks Kania what she really wants to do. Kania scans the area for something interesting and spots a stick lying on the ground. She picks it up and begins swinging it, expressing her desire to learn how to wield a sword like her brother Kyle. As Kania swings the stick, imitating Kyle as best she can, Arel observes that her center of gravity remains stable and her body balance is quite good. He thinks she has a natural talent for it, given her ability to remember and mimic movements, despite still being somewhat clumsy. Kania insists to her maid that she wants to learn swordsmanship so she can knock down knights, but her maid informs her that it is not possible. Kania is surprised by this and asks her maid why she cannot learn swordsmanship, especially since she has seen her brothers Kyle and Leonil practicing it. The maid explains that there is no reason for Kania to learn swordsmanship, and despite her stubbornness, she must accept that her most important studies should focus on literature, culture, and other such subjects. While the maid is occupied with explaining these priorities, Kania quietly takes the maid's sword without her noticing and declares that she will learn swordsmanship. The maid pleads with Kania to return the sword, but Kania refuses. The maid then suggests that Kania at least practice swordsmanship with a scabbard, as she might hurt herself otherwise. Observing the maid's frantic attempts to retrieve the sword, Arel finds Kania's determination quite intriguing.